Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming to this COVID-19 meetup for school librarians. My name is Amelia Kim. I am the lifelong learning librarian from the Montana State Library. It's so exciting to see so many people here, and some of these names I recognize, some of these people I don't. I wish that we could be meeting in person, but it's great to see you all here, and really excited to chat with you all and have this discussion time. A few things before we get started. A lot of you have already made use of the chat box, which is great. If you are kind of new to Zoom, you can open up your chat box in your Zoom menu. There's sometimes a little icon in your little black Zoom menu bar that says chat. You can click on that, it'll open up. If it's not there, you'll have to go to the More menu and open up the chat box from there. So at any point during this session, if you have a question or a comment, you're more than welcome to put it into the chat box. I'll be monitoring that. I'll bring that up for everyone to read, but you can also just unmute yourself and talk. So whatever you're most comfortable with. Another thing is that if you're looking for professional development credit, you can get Montana State Library credit if you register for this in Aspen. If you're not quite sure what that means, feel free to contact me and I can help you through that process. I'm going to actually put my email in the chat box, so you can just email me there. If you'd like OPI credit, I can also grant that as well. And if you want that, please put your name and your email in the chat box, name, email, and OPI credit, so that I can go through the text afterwards and see who wants OPI credit. And you'll be 1 hour of OPI renewal credit. Again, this is being recorded. I will be posting this to the Montana State Library Vimeo channel. So feel free to revisit the recording then, or share it with anybody else if you would like, and that'll be available for whomever. So great, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'd also like to thank Brittany Alberson from the School Library Division from MLA for joining us today, because I haven't worked very much with school librarians, and so we wanted to make sure we had this space, but we also wanted someone who was a little bit more familiar with the unique challenges that school librarians have. So thank you, Brittany, for coming and helping organize this.
Thank you. I did very little, but thank you for setting it up. This will be a great opportunity.
Yes, we're very excited. So here is the agenda for today, and this is not meant to be prescriptive. We can totally deviate from this, but these are the things that we wanted to cover. So firstly, talking about, well, actually, I think I put this at the end, but talking about COVID-19 resources from the State Library. Not all of them are specifically geared towards school librarians, but some of these things might be helpful. So we just wanted to go over what was there and let you know what was available. Some of the staff from the Montana Shared Catalog are actually on this call, and they will be talking about some updates and can answer any questions about the MSC. And then kind of what I'm guessing is going to be the meat of this discussion is the reopening plans and discussion. I know that everyone is kind of in different stages depending on what's happening on a local level, but just a chance for us to kind of compare, ask questions, discuss, and share what our concerns are, what our questions are, and us at the State Library to see how we might be able to further support. Then talking about some more announcements, resources, seeing if you all have anything else you'd like to share. And then also talking about future meetups. For right now, this is the only meetup that we have scheduled, but if this is something that you all would like to continue having this space, then we can definitely help provide that and help facilitate future discussion. So again, we can definitely diverge from this. We can go into whatever other directions that we need to, but this is sort of a starting point for us all. And let me just check through the chat box. I think most of this is OPI credit stuff. Okay, I don't think I've missed any questions. And welcome for those of you who have just joined us. It's so great that you were able to come.
Amelia,
Okay. So,
this is Kylie. Did
yes.
you want to do the MSc update first, or did you want to share other resources?
Now, you guys should go first.
Okay. So we just wanted to bring a few things to the attention of our school librarians who are in the Montana Shared Catalog. Um, a lot of our school libraries do not currently have holds functionality turned on. But we can do that if it helps you with your classroom visits. We can turn on that configuration, and that way either your staff and or your students can place holds through the online catalog enterprise. And then there is a wizard that you can look at, or we can set up a report for you that will show you what those holds are, and you can pull the items off the shelves and deliver them to the student's homeroom. We also wanted to let you know that if you want any special configuration when it comes to your due dates, overdue notices, and the online catalog, um, let us know, because anything you had in place at the end of the school year has been reset. And then we'll be sending out our closure dates survey soon so we can get that into the system for you. And if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to ask or open a ticket with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Kylie.
Yeah.
And I think Kylie, I don't have my participant list open, but I think Kylie, Amy, Aaron, and I'm guessing Rebecca are all on this call. So if you want to chat with them, you can actually private chat with them here if you have a question you'd like to address.
Yeah.
So.
Rebecca isn't currently, but the rest of us are.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kylie.
No problem.
Perfect. So feel free, we'll go ahead and move on, but if you do have questions, please put those in the chat box and I will bring that up. Marlo said, I don't know what enterprise is.
That's a good question, Marla. So enterprise is just the name of the product for the online catalog. So the catalog that your students go to search for items, it's also called enterprise.
Cool. I actually did not know that either. So thanks, Marla. Okay, so the next part is the reopening discussion. And I put some questions on here, and I'm not actually sure if these are the right questions to ask. So feel free to put forth other questions if you think those would lead to better discussion. But you know, we wanted to hear what your concerns were, what your questions were, what you would like to bring forth to your peers for discussion. Wondering what support the state library could provide, what questions do you have regarding the current COVID situation or COVID research, what resources do you need, what topics would you like us to do some research on, and then also should we schedule regular reopening discussions, and if so, when would work. Again, I know that a lot of school districts are in different parts of planning stages, so I guess maybe something that might be good to share is who is going back to school and in what capacity, just to get a sense of where we all are at. And especially because in Montana, things are so different across the state. Let's see, Amy has asked, how are others handling circulation? How long should we quarantine returned books? Brenda has also asked, is there a guide that we can present to our administration that supports library use? Real quick, Amy, at least on the public library side, the standard has been 72 hours for quarantine. And I'm not actually sure what the specific logistical process for that is, but the standard has been libraries that are lending stuff out, doing curbside or whatever, stuff comes in and it's quarantined for 72 hours. Let's see, is there a guide we can present to our administration that supports library use? And Brenda, does that mean specifically for a certain kind of library service, like supporting curbside use or supporting people being physically in the building. The state library does have a COVID reopening re-entry guide, but it's not necessarily saying libraries should open, libraries shouldn't open. It's more a collection of links and information to kind of best equip a community with making that decision. So I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for. D. Westrom, I think Deb Westrom, do you know if there's any research results based on the virus living on printed materials? How long do books and resources need to be quarantined? So actually, that's a really, really good question, Deb. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with WebJunction. WebJunction is a really great professional development platform for librarians. And they have actually joined with IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, to do a research project on COVID viral presence on printed materials. So they've joined with this research company called Battelle, B-A-T-T-E-L-L-E. And they have been doing rounds of testing on different materials, like different types of physical materials in an average office environment to measure the attenuation of viral loads on various materials. So I think they're in round 4 of testing, and I will show you that link. I don't have it up right now, but the WebJunction has a research hub page for the Battelle research project. And it talks about each round of materials, the 5 things that they tested, and the measurement of the viral load after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. So a lot of the research so far, final conclusions have not yet been drawn. I think they're planning on doing 5 rounds of testing, and they're on round 4. So far, most of the materials have had an undetectable viral load after 72 hours, which is why a lot of people use that as a sort of quarantine standard in public libraries. There was one material, I don't remember which one it was, maybe 1 or 2, where there were still detectable levels after 4 days. So I would encourage you to look at that data and make appropriate decisions accordingly. But yes, long answer short, there is a research project that is specifically looking into this topic, and I will show that to you and try and grab that link later on. Sorry, okay, lots of stuff in the chat. Amy says that we're going back full steam next week. Brenda says middle school blended return. Brenda asked if, do you have that link from OPI? And I think for the sort of OPI general guidelines, that is listed on one of our reopening guides. So I can show that to you when we go through that. Northlake County Public Library in Polson recently changed to a 4-day quarantine. Thanks, Gay, for putting that up here. K through 8 hybrid return, Lisa Brennan says, and says, how do I go about letting the kids come and browse through the books? We are returning full face-to-face next week. Molly says, I have 60 shared electronic devices in my library that go out and come back all day long. How are others handling cleaning electronic devices when they go in and out? Hellgate says, kids back full-time, libraries closed. Ginger says, we go back full-time on the 24th, students on the 26th, with the exception of parents who are preferring to homeschool or go with online, the second option offered. Gretchen shared a link. Here's a good resource from AASL about the pandemic. Jennifer also shared, oh, thank you, Jennifer. So yes, this is the WebJunction COVID-19 research project. So please take a look at that if you have any questions regarding the Battelle research project. Carrie shared a link. AASL put out a chart for guidance titled School Librarian Role in Pandemic Learning Conditions, and she attached the PDF there. Thank you. Sandra Larson said magazines, I believe, were longer. Yes, from the Battelle research project. I think it was something with glossy paper that you could still detect the virus after 4 days. But quote us on that. You should check the results. Kathleen said full return, but libraries being turned into a classroom. Lydia said Clinton's school, isolated classrooms, everything in class. And then Gretchen from Missoula says schools are hybrid K-12. There's an option for online school. So it seems like kind of a mixture. Some people are going back full face, full in person. I don't know how you call that. And then others are offering options. So, sorry, that was a lot of me talking. Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to put forth another question, or if you have any other questions as well.
Well, and I imagine, this is Brittany, I imagine a lot of us are also, our districts are still figuring it out. I mean, Bozeman, they just made their decision last night. We haven't seen, and I mean, I had to read about it in the paper. I didn't watch the meeting, and I haven't seen anything from admin as yet as to what their expectations are regarding library usage in buildings, because they just finished at like midnight. So I imagine others are in a similar boat if they don't have all the specifics yet.
Yeah, that's probably a very good point. Let's see, I think there was a question up here about, Molly, you had asked about cleaning. And I'm not sure what kind of electronic devices you have, if they're like Chromebooks or iPads or what have you. This has actually been something that public libraries have been struggling with. Molly said tablets, Chromebooks, and laptops. I know that some libraries for their computers have been putting saran wrap over the keyboard and like giving a sheet of saran wrap for people to put over the keyboard as they use it, and then it gets thrown away afterwards. Some people are doing just like a wipe down with like they spray a cloth and then they kind of try and wipe things down. Obviously spraying directly onto the device is not advisable a lot of the time. In other libraries, I think it was sort of, we are going to give you a wipe and you have to wipe the thing down before you use it. And so some people have approached it that way. There hasn't really been like this is the way that people are doing it. I think it sort of depends on the library. So those are some of the options that I'd heard about. And I don't know how feasible that is in a school either. I know that's slightly different from a public library setting. If anyone else is wrestling with the same issue, feel free to chime in as well.
Amelia, this is Carrie Cobb, and I don't have any good thing to chime in on the cleaning stuff, but I did have a question, and I didn't want to type it in the chat because it was going to be too long.
Yeah, go for it.
Does anybody know, like a while ago, there was a group meeting maybe, or there were talks about coming up with or having a consortium for larger schools for databases. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but where we could purchase those kind of as a big group for the AA schools. Does anybody out there, have we heard any more about this, or does anyone know what's going on with that?
I feel like I do remember seeing something about that on Wired. I think from what I recall, it was kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic, in that really initial just kind of fire hose to the face burst of like questions and resources that were out there. I don't remember if anything concrete has come from that, but I can take a look. Let me make a note of that and see if I can find something. But if anyone knows of anything, please do also feel free to contribute.
This is Kara at the State Library. I don't recall that message myself either, but I was thinking that this touches on the question about what resources do you need, and generally, do you have some emerging needs from this hybrid or remote learning situation that are more pressing this coming school year that you would like to seek some group solutions for.
And then Ellie from Imaginative Libraries said in the chat, at our public library, we spray alcohol on a paper towel and then use that to wipe down keyboard screens. Nice. So thanks for sharing, Ellie. And then there was another question up here. Amy, I hope we answered your question about handling circulation. How long should we quarantine returned books? Let's see. Was there another question? Oh, Anne had asked, how do I go about letting the kids come and browse through the books? We are returning full face-to-face next week. And again, this is for a public library setting. I don't know how feasible this is for a school library. Some libraries have allowed in-person browsing, but just for 30 minutes and just for like 10 people at a time. I don't know if that would be enforceable in a school, but that's been how they've been able to get people into the building to look at things, but still making sure there's enough space and that there's not a ton of prolonged exposure. So that maybe could be an option, but I know that's a little bit more complicated in a school. Okay, Anne says, I think I can make that work. We will have small classes. So yeah. Betsy Constam said, my understanding is that respiratory spraying was more of a factor than virus on materials. And Betsy, I think that's something that I have heard too. I was actually planning on looking into that though. I don't remember if the Battelle Research Project was looking at spraying the respiratory stuff. So I've heard a lot of varying things on that. But yeah, I think why the masks are so important, because a lot of it is from viral load from, nose and mouth exposure. I guess that's another question. Masks in public libraries have been a really, really big issue. Some libraries, thankfully, have not really had a big issue with their patrons using masks or not wearing masks. Others have had a really tough time. So I'm not really sure what school policies regarding masks are going to be, but maybe that's also a similar concern. Kathleen said, Elliot Imagine If had the idea of having a cart with grade appropriate books that get brought into the grades to browse, then that cart can be quarantined before being brought back, so that's an option. Amy said, have them mask up and use hand sanitizer before browsing. Kim asks, if we have in-person browsing with kids, is there a way to clean the shelves? Is Lysol safe for the book spines? I remember there was a library that said even before COVID, they had done like a pretty rigorous cleaning procedure, and they regularly used like Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes to wipe down books when they came in, and they said that was fine. So yes, you can try it and see, I guess. Gretchen said, we're going to try and use online browsing and have students place holds, checking them out and delivering them to classrooms. Another suggestion was to have a browsing cart to limit touching of all the books, temporary fix. Keely said, I saw a school library plan that includes having students use hand sanitizer before and after browsing. Sean said, we will allow 20 masked and pearled students at a time to browse, supervised by Purelled. Okay, I was like, pearled, I wonder what that means. Supervised by a teacher and a librarian. Carts reside at the end of stacks, books to be sanitized and quarantined. We will pull books for classes and curbside service. Marla sent the article, The Atlantic had an article, hygiene theater is a huge waste of time. People are power scrubbing their way to a false sense of security. And Marla, that was actually an article that was shared at the last public librarian COVID meetup where, you know, some people were wondering, like, is this actually effective in any way? So I would recommend people to read the article, and it's definitely food for thought. Sandra said we use Lysol and Clorox wipes at our public library and haven't had any issues with hardcover. Ellie said, from what I've read, quarantine is lab tested to do a better job of letting viruses die than cleaning. We could never clean every page and nook and cranny. Brittany asked, how are you sourcing your Clorox wipes, Sandra? And then Carrie also shared an article, US Health Coronavirus Clorox wipes. Clorox won't have enough disinfecting wipes until 2021. They might be hard to find for a while. Yes. Sandra said, we get Clorox wipes through Amazon and our local hardware store. Sometimes they're hard to get, but we have been lucky. And then Alan from Billing said that cleaning supplies are very difficult to come by here, which is true. This is maybe a little bit off topic, but something else that has sort of come up in the public library discussions is also just self-care and taking care of yourself. I mean, I know like we obviously want everyone to be safe and we want our communities to be safe, but that does at times put, I think, a little bit more pressure and a little bit more labor at the feet of some people compared to other people. And I do think that schools are probably going to find themselves on the receiving end of this. So not that anyone necessarily has any questions or solutions for that, but just as like an acknowledgement of, you know, whether you feel worried or, you know, maybe unsafe or, you know, whatever it might be, mental health is definitely something to prioritize and be aware of during these times. And especially in these kind of unprecedented times.
And if I could just add, that was actually a topic of a great deal of discussion at this year's school librarian retreat, our summer retreat that we had. Mm-hmm. And Shawnee Craig from Whitefish gave a really good presentation on self-care and just emotional intelligence and awareness, mm-hmm. particularly through this time. And so those recordings are actually available. We sent the links out on Wired, and okay. You are welcome to go view them. She had some good kind of coping techniques and meditative techniques, just so that we can kind of at least allow ourselves to acknowledge our own vulnerabilities and concerns right now, and maybe hopefully deal with them with some efficacy.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Brittany. I'll go and find those and try and include that in the recording description on Vimeo. And Gay Luke says it was fantastic and helped tons. So great. That's really awesome. Ellie had said at our public library, available infrastructure, the room to quarantine books, cleaning supplies, staff labor, etc., have led to our decisions of what services to offer rather than trying to replicate normal services without sufficient materials and labor. And Alan from the Billings Public Library has said that she's in the same boat as Ellie. So that's also really important to consider. It takes a lot of manpower to make sure that everything is being cleaned and following procedures. So not everything will necessarily translate, and that's totally fine. Any other questions? I guess also, let's see, we have about 50 people in the space right now. Should we schedule regular reopening discussions? I'm definitely more than happy to, but you know, if it's not needed, I don't want to like force you guys to come. Mary said in the chat, K through 5 librarians at Missoula County suggested that we do all our lessons online and have book delivery to classrooms. And then Ellie said, basically, we aren't setting our sights on quote unquote normal. Normal can't exist right now. It's an emotional detachment from our usual model as librarians, wanting to provide everything to everyone at all times. Molly said, I have been asked to bring the library to the classrooms this year, including lessons, book check, in and out. And kudos to Ellie in the chat for being like, yes, you know, these aren't normal times, and so we shouldn't try to be normal. There's a lot happening. Brenda asked, how are you handling the collection of materials from the spring? Our budgets do not allow for replacement and additional materials, including databases and ebooks. What are your thoughts? That's a really good question. I know just from the state library, I think, well, not that we do a ton of like physical material collection, but I know that we definitely had to reallocate things for electronic resources, and I think a lot of public libraries did that as well, but yeah, that might be a different situation for schools. Kim said, does anyone have some good online lessons for school library skills or websites that they would be willing to share? Yes, any resources that you have, please feel free to share them in the chat box. Put a little description and I can include that on our MSL community forum. Kathleen said, I think 1 in a month might be helpful, as this will allow us to have further questions, troubleshooting, etc. There is a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know what questions I might have, as I am not 100% sure what my day or library services are going to look like. Carrie said, I'd like to schedule more meetings because I think I'll have more questions, ideas, and concerns as the year progresses. And then Ginger said, I'm not positive yet, but I think our district is going to have librarians go to classrooms to teach. And Molly says, I'd love to meet up again. Maybe once a month is ideal. Cool. So maybe once a month has been suggested a couple of times. Let's see, today is the 11th. So maybe beginning of September.
And I would just like to put forth, Amelia, at that point, some of us will be back in classes and schools are going to try, I suspect, and replicate more or less regular school hours. So if there's any way we can schedule it for, I don't know, 4:30, what, I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
At a time when librarians can take a step back because we don't have time during the day to do that.
That's a really good point. Cool, then I'll take a look at maybe the first 2 weeks of September and send out a doodle poll for some afternoon times, and we can find a time that works for most people. We won't ever find a time that works for everyone, but a time that works for most people.
Amelia, this is Kylie again with the Montana Shared Catalog, and it just occurred to me, one of the things that we could have listed on our slide is if your school library is in the Montana Shared Catalog and you want to be able to do checkouts in the classroom, we do have, was previously called Mobile Circ, now it's called Mobile Staff, but it's basically workflows that you can put on a mobile device like a laptop or your phone, and you can do checkouts and things similar to that in the classroom without having to be in the library. So if you have questions about that, please open a ticket and we can help you out.
Awesome, thanks Kylie. Cool. And it sounds like once a month sounds good to people. There's been more people saying that sounds great in the chat box. And Sean said for Kim, I think there was a question about this. Humanities Montana has some great fake news and other online safety / discussion resources, and she included a link. So feel free to click on that. After school for sure. And then Dee Bremer says, I believe my most important job right away will be to practice online learning, being sure students can log on to whichever platform we decide to use if online learning happens again. So that's also a really good point. And then Sean asked Kylie, if we used mobile circ, do we need to download mobile staff to our devices?
Sean, that's a great question. I don't think so. They just changed the name just to make it a pain in the butt for all of us. But if you find that you already had mobile circ downloaded and for some reason it's giving you trouble, I would just uninstall and then go to the App Store or Google Play, whichever device you're using, and look up mobile staff to download it. And I can get anyone the activation URL and key who needs it. You just open a ticket. That's a great question, Sean. I don't think so.
Cool. Thanks, Kylie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Any other questions? If anyone has any other resources to share, I will be going through some of that at the on the next slide. But I'm sure that you all have great resources that you've been using or would like to suggest. So please do feel free to put that in the chat box. Or if you're looking for a specific resource, it's always great to crowdsource these sort of things. Kathleen says that Vooks is a great resource, takes books and narrates them and makes them animated. It's free for a year for teachers. That's great. Gretchen asked, can you share the link for the recording of the summer library retreat? Yes, I will try and find that and put that and put the link into the Vimeo recording when I upload the recording of this webinar. If someone would like to try and find that now and put it in the chat box, please do feel free to. I don't want to navigate away from my screen right now because I have a lot of things up. And
I can do it. I can do it, Amelia.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brittany.
Yeah.
So Amelia, just as a reminder to everyone, this is Jennifer Burnell. If you are following the chat and you're thinking, oh, there's some great ideas here, I need to grab this or capture it or take notes, you can also save the chat. So if you look at where it says to everyone and where you're going to type a message and then file and then the ellipsis is the more. If you right click or click on the ellipsis, there's a save chat. So before you log off of this session, if you want to save everything that's been in the chat, you can do so.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jennifer. That's a really great reminder. And Jennifer, not to put you on the spot, but I guess I totally forgot. Do you want to talk about the Montana Memory Project? I totally should have thought of that when I was talking about this.
That's all right. Yeah, absolutely. We would love to hear for your input on what kinds of resources you need to help teachers, particularly with history-related topics. I think people automatically assume that the Montana Memory Project is only good for teaching Montana history, but we actually have a lot of resources to teach broader topics. We have a lot on World War II, World War I. So there are a lot of resources, I guess, in the MMP that help bring home some of the things that happen nationally and globally. So if you're trying to help find resources and you need some assistance trying to bring it to a more local perspective, I'm happy to help find those. We also have a great engagement page on our website, which I'll share the link for, which we've been adding to all summer, actually since April, just ways to utilize and search the MMP. And we'll be releasing some exhibit content hopefully soon, which I'll be sharing broadly when that happens. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. And I don't know if some of you have seen this, but Pam Henley, who also works at the State Library, works with Jennifer and sends out emails on Wired that have MMP engagement ideas. So that's a really great starting point for ways to use some of the Montana Memory Project information and to get some ideas from there. Let's see. Kathleen said, Vooks is great when you can't read because you need to help kids check out, get everything ready, especially if you're having to go into classes and need some time to get things set up. Brittany did share the School Library Division Summer Retreat recording in the chat box, so feel free to click on that. Jennifer also shared, oh, I think that was, I think you were trying
the
to
wrong one. I was trying to copy from the UDW, which doesn't work. So I'm putting it in now, but these are all the engagement ideas that Pam does. They're just also recorded on our website. So I will put that in the chat now. And then there's also our Facebook page, which if you follow, we share different ideas on our engagement activities on Facebook every week. We share about 2 different ideas there, as well as a daily post on Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. And Mary said, can anyone speak to how something works? I think maybe we missed a word there. My group talked about adding this resource to add ebook checkouts. I know we need a good digital resource for 4th through 6th grade readers. We have Tumble books, but they combine middle and high school together. Oh, Overdrive. Okay, so yeah, if anyone has experiences with Overdrive, which I think that's what we use for Montana Library to Go, but I don't know if that's different for school libraries or not.
I can speak to it. This is Brittany.
Okay,
I at least can speak to how it was when I was in Billings. We had our own Overdrive set up there in Billings, just for the Billings district. And we were able to work with them to get them to bust it out into different grade levels. And so each kid who was uploaded into our search system obviously had their grade level. And if they rated outside of the grade level, they couldn't access those books, and they wouldn't even see those books when they went looking on their Overdrive, which was how we kind of kept, kindergartners from trying to read Twilight, essentially. But then as you got up to like the high school level, they could read anything K through 12. It aggregated. And it was expensive, I'm not gonna lie. And I know we had gotten a good deal on it when we started it. It was very useful, but it was just like so many things. It was one copy, one user. And so, you had to buy multiple copies. Like I know something we ran into here in Bozeman in the spring was a bunch of English teachers trying to get multiple ebook copies of To Kill a Mockingbird. That was not feasible. So Overdrive is great. It has a lot of amazing tools that you can use, but it comes with a price tag, and I don't know what they're offering these days.
Thanks, Brittany. If anyone else has any opinions on Overdrive, feel free to contribute. Marla said we like Overdrive Sora. The public library uses Overdrive's Libby. Easy to use. And Marla says you can rent a class set temporarily for a lot less than Sora. And Scarlett Sherman says Overdrive has class sets around $1.50 to $4.50 a copy. Perfect. Great. Okay. I'm glad that you got the information you needed, Mary. Let's see. I do have 9:47 on my computer, so we might move on to talking about some of the COVID resources that the State Library has collected so far. But please do feel free to add any other questions that you have into the chat box. And we can always go back to anything that we've covered. So, Molly says there is a shared Montana Overdrive option that allows a school to join based on size. Ours is $250 a year, and it allows students to access ebooks from the shared collection. So that's also an option too. And then Lisa said, Sora is about $500 per year for us for 600 students. And then Marla said that's what we do in Helena, and Ellie said, see if your local public library has something like Hoopla, no waiting in line. We pay per checkout as a public library, but 1,000 kids could check out the same item at once. Brittany says, I believe there is a population cap on that Overdrive option. I think the one that Molly was referring to with the shared Overdrive option. Brittany said, last time I checked, we had too many students to qualify. So many different iterations. Okay. So this page is just Montana State Library resources. And so this is stuff that we've sort of accumulated over the past few months. So I wanted to bring your attention to the top 2 bullet points, which is the COVID-19 General Resources Guide and then the COVID-19 Reopening Guide. There are other guides that we have posted on our website, but these are the 2 that I think see the most use and are the ones that I update the most often. So I'm going to go ahead and put those links into the chat box so you can take a look at those and see if you'd like to use them. The COVID-19 General Resources for Libraries guide is long. There's a lot on there. It is broken up by sections, so you can kind of jump and go to the section that you want. The reopening guide is also a little bit long, but there is a lot of really good information in there. And after we talk about this slide, I'll actually show what's on there specifically. Let's see, a few more things. Dee Westrom said, Sora allows you to check out the group books as well as purchasing books that only your school has access to. And then Amy said, can you share information on how to join the Montana Overdrive collection? So if that is something that someone has information on, please feel free to share that. But there's also another resource. This is a Google Doc, and I'll put this into the chat box as well. I'm sure a lot of you have probably already seen this, but the School Library Journal has a list of publisher information regarding restrictions that have been lifted or relaxed because of COVID, so that people can do things online. This list is, I think, as updated as it can be. There is a lot of information that's sort of changing. Initially, a lot of publishers had released their copyright alterations at the very beginning of the pandemic, and I don't think anyone anticipated that it would last this long. So things might have expired. So I would strongly encourage you to double check, because I would hate for anyone to accidentally commit a copyright infringement. But just know that a lot of publishers have relaxed restrictions around reading books online, sharing books online, et cetera, because of COVID. Gretchen said, last spring, numerous companies offered free online use of their products. Have any of you curated a list of the companies that are continuing this through the fall? And that's a really good question. I do remember we had briefly put together a list of educational resources, but again, that was stuff that was released at the very, like, back in March, you know. So I personally have not looked at those companies to see if things have changed for the fall, but I can definitely do that and try and provide an updated list. And if you know of anything and you'd like to share it, please send that to me and I can add that. I'll have to find where that list is, but yeah. Additionally, we have an MSL community forum. So this is just, you know, kind of a 1990s style online forum. It looks a little bit more modern than a 1990s style forum, but it's just a forum where anyone can post questions, can post resources, can have discussions, so that everyone else can see. To view the forum, you do not need an account, but in order to post in the forum and comment in the forum, you do need to create an account. It is free. And we would love to see more traffic and more posts in here. So please do feel free to do so. But that is a resource available to you. And then we also have a community calendar where public libraries who have been doing online programs can share those programs for anyone in Montana to attend. So this calendar, we have shared with a lot of our statewide partners, people who work in early childhood, people who work with after school programs, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure if if you all have anything that you'd like to post to this calendar, you are more than welcome to. You are also more than welcome to just use it as a resource to send to your students and to your families. Another resource that I wanted to share is this Montana Comics at BiblioBoard. Unfortunately, we only have access to this until the end of August. BiblioBoard offered a free license to a lot of state libraries for the summer, the duration of the summer. And it's open to anyone in Montana and for simultaneous use as many people as you need. So I don't know if this will be useful for anyone and if anyone will be in school actually before it expires, but even just on a personal note, if you like reading graphic novels and comics, they have about 4,000 titles here. You can just click on the link and you should be able to browse and read comics online. So please do share this and feel free to send it to whomever. Like I said, it's only available until August 31st, but for the time that it is available, feel free to use it as you like. And then lastly, the last resource the link I want to share is our Vimeo channel for COVID-19 meetups. So this showcase that I'm sharing is for the past COVID-19 meetups that we've done for the public libraries. I will be creating a separate showcase for the school for this recording and for future school library meetups, but you are more than welcome to look at this showcase and watch any of these recordings and see if there's anything in there that you're interested in hearing more about. For all of these recordings, we share the PowerPoint, and then there is a list of links in the description so that you can click and look at everything that has been shared. So yes, I think that's mostly the resources that we have. I do know that it's almost 10, so if you need to head out, feel free to. This last bit is going to be me showing some of the resources that we have and screen sharing so that you can see specifically what I'm referring to. So right here, this is the Vimeo showcase for the COVID-19 public library meetups. This was the very first one and I had everyone doodle on it. But you can see we have quite a few, ooh, that's not supposed to be in there. But you can look through and see the dates and you can take a look at the slide share and the links in there. Let's see, there's a chat. Molly said that the Sora Overdrive representative to contact is Susie Nash, so feel free to reach out to her if you like. And then let me move this down. Oh, I guess before people leave, are there any questions or anything? I want to make sure that we get to people's questions or concerns. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, but feel free to put whatever into the chat box and I'll make sure to take a look at that. And if you have to go, feel free to, and thank you so much for coming. This was really great to connect with everybody. This is the COVID-19 reopening and reentry guide. So you can see on here, there's national and local guidelines on reopening. So federal things that have been posted, the executive orders from Montana regarding reopening. There are library reopening plans and policy examples, information about the mask mandate, and library services. So I believe on this guide, there is information on, well, maybe it's not on this one. I think it's actually on the general one. In the general resources for libraries, there is information on here for, you can see the Realm project from Battelle. So as you can see, this is quite long. There's a lot of stuff on here. Some of it is not necessarily relevant anymore, but we've kept it on here so that we can see how the situation has changed. Like you can see here, there's stuff from April, there's stuff from March. But if you have something that you'd like to add to this or something that you think would be useful, please do let me know, and I'd be more than happy to add it in. There's quite a bunch of stuff on here, both Montana focused resources and then just general things from all over the country. So anything that you'd like to contribute, please do. In this general resources guide, there is a section for online educational resources, which I don't think has been updated in a while. And there is this Montana communal spreadsheet of online resources. So I think people were adding things into here. And I think this is probably the list that I'll start with to check and see what their policies are going to be for the fall. So feel free to add things into here if you would like. And feel free to share anything with me that you'd like to get the word out on. Yes, this is the School Library Journal Publisher Information Directory. Again, I would highly encourage you to double check anything that you find in here with the publisher themselves, just to make sure that you don't end up committing copyright infringement. But this is a great place to start and look through things. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for now.